Velocity. Start with velocity. Velocity, we told you that it's a measure of, velocity is a measure of responsiveness. We start with velocity is a measure of responsiveness, and we have seen that price velocity, and there are 5 types of price velocity: perfectly elastic, elastic demand, inelastic demand, and the same is expressed in terms of graph. So elastic demand curve is more flat, and inelastic demand curve is more steep, and unit elastic, this is called rectangular hyperbola, and perfectly elastic demand curve is a horizontal straight line, and perfectly inelastic demand curve is a vertical straight line. And we have seen the relation between elasticity and expenditure. When price declines, total revenue increases when demand is elastic, and when price declines, total revenue decreases when demand is inelastic, and when price increases or decreases, total revenue remains same. That is the case of unit elastic, and the same is explained in terms of numbers like this. So PQ, and the first one is elastic demand, unit elastic, and inelastic. So we have summarized the features here: elastic, unit elastic, inelastic, and value, depending on the value of coefficient, what is the effect of fall in price, the effect of rise in price. Now, measurement of velocity. We have seen that the whole curve may be called elastic or inelastic, or here demand curve is more elastic during this price range, and inelastic here, more steep, and in the other diagram, demand curve is inelastic and more elastic in the lower price range. So to measure elasticity at a given point, select any point like P, draw a tangent line, extend to x-axis and y-axis, call it as BA tangent line. So PA by PB, that is lower segment by upper segment, gives you elasticity at that point. So we have another point, we have taken another point here. So PA by PB gives you elasticity at this point. Now arc elasticity. Point elasticity gives misleading results because when price declines, you get one value, and when price increases, you get another value. So to even out this, we use the average of price and average of quantities, that is arc elasticity. Arc elasticity formula is the average quantities and average prices we have taken in the denominator. And using this, you can see that the value of coefficient is 4.5, that is the midpoint value. How elasticity varies in case of a linear demand curve. In case of a linear demand curve, take the midpoint of a linear demand curve. Demand is elastic, unit elastic at the midpoint, because lower segment and upper segment are equal. Lower segment by upper segment gives you value 1 equal to 1, that is unit elastic. And above the midpoint, demand is elastic, and below the midpoint, demand is inelastic. Here demand is infinity, elasticity is infinity, and here the elasticity is 0. So elasticity declines from infinity to elastic to unit elastic, inelastic, and finally 0. So when a linear demand curve makes an upward shift, elasticity changes or declines. That is the meaning of this diagram. What are the determinants of elasticity? There are 3 basic determinants: number and closeness of substitutes, the commodity's importance in the buyer's budget, and the number of its uses. And other elasticity measures also we have seen, that is income elasticity and cross elasticity. This is with regard to the second major important component, elasticity. And let us start the last aspect, that is demand forecasting. What is forecast in general? We have been familiar with the word weather forecast. So a forecast is a prediction or estimation of a future event. In the same lines, demand forecast means forecasting future sales, be it 3 months or 6 months or 1 year. What would be the sales in the next 3 months, next 1 year? That is called demand forecasting. And what is the need for such a forecast? We all know that we produce today for the sake of tomorrow. So production has to take place in the current time period in anticipation of future sales. And the sales forecast is the central hub for several managerial decisions, like production decision, pricing decision, inventory levels, advertisement. So almost everything depends on the demand for the product, forecasted demand. So since the future is always uncertain, we have to make as accurate as possible. So there are 2 types of forecast. Generally, one is a short-run forecast and second one is called long-run forecast. Usually, since the future is always uncertain, most of the firms, they rarely use long-run forecasts. They generally focus on short-run forecasting methods, short-run forecasts only. The reason is, long-run forecasts are required very rarely, like diversification, purchase of a plant, machinery, expansion. So such decisions require not immediate future. The firm has to think of longer period before committing its huge amount of money on plant and machinery or diversification or expansion. If it takes into consideration 1 year sales or 3 months sales, it's not enough. So for taking such decisions, a long range view is required. But the longer the period, the less accurate the estimate becomes. For day-to-day operations, for majority of the decisions, generally firms depend on short-term forecasting methods. Now, what are the methods of forecasting the demand for existing products and new products? Similarly, we have to study what methods are available or techniques are available for forecasting the demand for existing products and also for new products. Let us start with existing products. Existing products means the firm is already in the business and the products are already sold to the customers. There is a past data available. So using the past data, you can project into future. So past experience acts as a guide to project into future. So what are the methods of estimating the demand for the existing products? For example, majority of the firms, they use survey techniques. Here you can make a survey of consumers or you can make a survey of experts. Generally, the best way to know the intentions of buyers is asking the buyer directly. So by contacting the ultimate user and knowing the opinions of the ultimate user, you will get to the most accurate information. So the best method is directly contact the customer. And if the number of customers are small, you can take complete enumeration method. Say a very small number of group of customers are there, then it is better to contact each and every customer and know their intentions, and accordingly you add the purchase quantities of each individual to get the total market quantity or total demand for the product by all the customers. That is simple addition. But when the customers are large and they are widely spread, complete enumeration, 100% survey is not possible. Complete enumeration is not possible. Then you have to use sample survey methods only. Sample survey means simple sampling or random sampling or stratified random sampling, like that. So that is one way. Asking the customer to know their purchase intentions, buying requirements is the best method. And the second one is a survey of experts' opinions. So there are experts in the field who are dealing with this product or similar products and they have vast experience, and taking their opinions is another method. So here also, if the experts are small, you can take complete enumeration, and if they are large, you can take a sample survey. And another, in addition to experts, another important source of information to know the purchase habits of customers or to arrive at a reasonable estimate of sales is contact the grassroots salespersons. So the grassroots salesperson has the most intimate feel of the market. You know the pulse of the customers and how customers react for different variables like price or quality, color, etc. So he can give an accurate estimation of the consumer's behavior. So based on the salesperson's approach, opinions also we can estimate future demand. And the third method is market experiments. That is, you release the product in a pilot test market. Instead of releasing the product to the entire country, for example, you select a sample market where all the expected conditions are prevail, and you will see the reactions of the customers, and accordingly you can make modifications or release. Based on the experience, the product can be released to the entire nation. That is called pilot testing, or releasing the product in a selected test markets. And next one is laboratory experiments or controlled experiments. Here you identify a group of customers and you in a supermarket or in a controlled laboratory conditions, you see how they react and you observe their reactions. So the limitation with this is the participant knows that he is part of an experiment and the true behavior may not be known. And similarly, when you ask the buyers, the limitation is the buyers, the intentions of buyers may not be real. They are created merely during the process of interview. That is, the risk is always there. And similarly, the hunch method, the opinion of experts is called hunch method. What is the guarantee that the guesswork of the expert is correct, going to be correct? So there are certain limitations that to arrive at a reasonably accurate estimate, these are the methods available. So future is always uncertain and no forecast can be 100% accurate. Instead of that, in spite of that, we make sales estimates or forecasts because they are very much required for several decision areas. And coming to the statistical methods, trend analysis. For example, trend analysis method is widely used. We have past data, and using the past data, you can explain the trend method. For example, see, we have a company's sales data over a period of 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86. 6 years, 7 years data is given, sales figures. So we have taken the sales data of this company for the last 7 years and using this data by calculating y is equal to a plus bx, y is equal to a plus bx, simple linear trend, you can identify the future trend using this. For example, you find x deviations here, you take the midpoint as 0 and minus 2, minus 3, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3 as deviations, 1, 2, 3 as plus side. And then x into y and then x square. So using the simple two notations, you can calculate the value of AB. Y is equal to a plus bx. So you have to identify the value of a and b parameters. A is a constant factor and b is the rate of change or slope. That indicates the growth or rate of change. So after that, the trend values are given in the last column. So that gives you an idea. Y is equal to a value is 7.143 in this example and b value is 0.857 into 7. For 1990, for example, you want to measure 86 as 3, 87, 88, 89, 90. You want to calculate the sales for 1990. That is y is equal to a plus bx, 7.143 plus 0.857, that is b into 7. That gives you 13.142. So here we have given trend projections method. Suppose over a period, time period here and sales here, A to B, this is past data. We have plotted the data over the period. That means you are trying to fit a line of best fit using y is equal to a plus bx. We are trying to, this is the intercept and this is the rate of change or slope. So A to B is actual data. That means you want to project beyond that, beyond B. This may be here or here or here, from B to C or D or E. So to avoid this problem, if you can calculate y is equal to a plus bx, that gives you the trend value like this, and you can extrapolate to the future time period up to 90. So we have calculated up to 86 data is given and you can extend to 90 using the trend value method. Now, what are the methods of forecasting the demand for new products? New products, they pose altogether a different problem because there is no past experience, no data is available. So you have to deduce from the experience of other firms. So the product may be new to this company or to the nation also sometimes. Then estimating the demand becomes altogether difficult. So what are the techniques available for forecasting the demand for new products? For example, Joel Dean has given 6 important techniques of estimating the demand for new products. The first one is called evolutionary approach. Second one is substitute approach, growth curve approach, opinion poll approach, sales experience and vicarious approach. Let us see these experiences in detail, these approaches in detail. The first one is called evolutionary approach. That means, imagine black and white TV is widely used, and you want to estimate the demand for color TV. So the color TV demand starts where black and white TV ends. You take this as the evolution. So you can see the growth of black and white and where it stopped, and from there you imagine that it starts. Color TV, demand for color TV starts. And in the second approach, that is evolutionary approach, second one is substitute approach. The existing product or your product must be treated as a substitute to some other product available in the country. So how the demand for the other commodity varies. Based on the demand for your substitute, you can predict the demand for your own product. That is called substitute approach. And growth curve approach. For example, the company's product is an electronic appliance. Generally, how the growth patterns of electronic goods in general they are varying, and based on that experience you can deduce or generalize the growth for this product. And coming to opinion poll, that is buyers survey, asking the customers directly opinions of customers, and sales experience, that is nothing but pilot testing. And vicarious approach means that is taking the opinions of experts in the field, like wholesalers, dealers, or specialists, or grassroots salespersons, etc. So these are the methods of estimating or forecasting the demand for a new product. Now, what is the criteria for a good forecasting technique? So in order to say that a good forecasting technique is acceptable, there are 6 important criteria. And first one is it should give accurate results. We know that 100% accuracy is not possible, but to the extent possible, the results must be accurate. Second criteria is plausibility. The method should be understandable to the person who is going to use. It should not be too complicated. Plausibility, understandability. And the durability, third one, that is the relations established must be durable for extending to other products. And flexibility, the method should not be rigid, it should be flexible for modifications. And availability, so if you design a model without the data or something not available, there is no use. And economy, so if the method is too expensive, it may not be within the reach of several companies. It should be economical also. So a good forecasting technique must satisfy these 6 criteria. These criteria were also given by Zoeldine. With this, we have completed the meaning of demand and the law of demand, and also the elasticity, that is the responsiveness of demand to a given change in price, and other concepts of elasticity like income elasticity, cross elasticity, and finally the need for forecasting demand and the techniques of forecasting the demand for a product. What are the techniques available for existing products, and what are the techniques available for forecasting the demand for new product? This is all about demand analysis. Thank you.